In 2016, California wife and mother Sherry Papini disappeared for 22 days. When she was found, she told authorities a detailed account of being kidnapped and tortured. Years later, in a stunning twist, Papini pled guilty to making false statements about what happened to her, setting off a media firestorm. Now, for the first time, Sherry Papini is telling her side of the story and revealing shocking new information. Sherry Papini, Caught in a Lie, an ID documentary event, Monday, May 26th at 9 on ID. Set your DVR. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 208 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I think people are more interested in how you're doing.
I'm trying to get there, man.
Yeah. I mean, not to speak for you, but I can see an improvement since you were in studio last week.
Yeah.
But you still have that COVID pneumonia in your lungs.
I do, man.
And cannot get rid of it.
It's gonna take a while.
It's a monster.
It is, man.
It really is. But you're eating better.
Yeah.
You're feeling better. You're just not 100%.
Yeah, I'm like 60%, man.
Yeah. So everybody, they definitely want those type of updates. People are always asking me for it, so we have to give it. But I'm excited. We've got a couple of brand new episodes. We haven't had new episodes really in a little while since you got sick.
So that's good.
Yep. But before we get into that, let's give our Patreon shout outs. We had Beck Einsdale.
Hey, Beck.
Miracle Ridge Nigerian Goats jumped out at our highest level.
Those are awesome goats, man.
Brenda Kipling.
Hey, Brenda.
Jamie Peterson jumped out at our highest level.
Hey, Peterson.
Patty Miracle.
What's up, Miracle?
Sammy Davidson.
Hey, Sammy.
Greg Deloach.
What's happening, Greg?
Jordan Knoll jumped out at our highest level.
Oh, thanks, Jordan.
Jocelyn Rodriguez.
Hey, Jocelyn.
Norel Peterson, who I think sent us something in the mailbag as well.
I appreciate that, Norel.
Bonnie Mohan.
Hey, Monty.
Anita Cawthon.
Hey, Anita.
Joel Browner.
What's going on, Joel?
Richard Embry.
Hey, Embry.
James Coriglio.
Coriglio.
Eva Landary jumped out at our highest level.
What's going on, Landry?
Celeste Gray.
Hey, Celeste.
Michelle Slocum.
If you can't join them, Slocum.
Exactly. Chelsea Nowak.
Hey, Chelsea.
Cameo Patch.
What's going on, Cameo?
Chris the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, Lebrowski in the house.
You just said Lebowski. John Quillen.
Could have been Lebrowski. Could have like really big brows.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I got you.
big brows are in right now. So.
Are they? I did not know that.
Well, females, but maybe guys too. I don't know.
I didn't know either one of those.
Hey, Quillen.
Roxanne Richardson jumped out at the highest level.
What's happening, RR?
And last but not least, Sheila Frug.
What's happening, Sheila?
And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs. This week we selected Robert Baker.
What's up, Robert?
So we appreciate all the new Patreon support and the continued support. It's amazing.
It is.
We had some great PayPal donations as well. Jennifer Warmuth.
Hey, Jennifer.
Kelly Moss.
Hey, appreciate it, Kelly.
Samantha Unghire.
That's what you're going to go with?
Ungahire.
Ungahire.
Oh, maybe.
Got to extend that out a little bit.
And Simon Appleby.
Well, what's up, Simon?
So thanks to all of you also. We had a Patreon merch winner for October, and that was Kim Thoreau.
Yeah, appreciate it, Kim.
So congratulations to Kim. Gibbs, right now, we have a brand new episode out on True Crime All the Time Unsolved. We're going back a ways.
We are.
This is going to be one of the oldest episodes probably we've ever done, the very early 1900s.
Yeah.
To talk about the murder of Rebecca McClung. This is an interesting case for a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, it's very close to you and I.
It is.
It's about 20, 30 minutes down the road from where we are in studio. So there's an element there. But, you know, I think when you dive into some of these unsolved, that are this old.
Yeah.
Chances are the person that did this, and I shouldn't even say chances are, whoever did this is long deceased.
Yeah. This is always going to be unsolved, I think.
Well,
in a way,
it's going to be unsolved because you can never prosecute that person, probably. Right. But it doesn't mean that we can't go through the details and people can't kind of make up their own mind as to what happened and maybe who was involved.
Exactly.
That element still remains.
Sure.
All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
Man, I am so ready.
We're talking about Yazeed Essa. And this case is going to take us around the world.
Yeah, I like going around the world.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I know you do. You're a world traveler.
Exactly.
Everybody knows that. But, this is an interesting case because we're talking about a doctor who seemingly had it all, but wanted out and tried to figure a way out. And part of that was to kill his wife. And I think, when you start out talking about this case, I said it, seemingly had it all. So to the outside world, this was the perfect couple. They should have had everything. They should have lived happily ever after. You can use all those cliches.
Right.
You had a beautiful nurse, Rosemary DiPuccio, and a handsome doctor named Yazeed Essa, or Yaz, I think as most people called him.
Pretty striking pair.
Yeah, friends and family all said that. The two met in 1995 while they were working at Mount Sinai Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio. Rosie and Yaz were married on September 11th, 1999. Now, at the time, that date wouldn't have really meant anything other than, okay, this is the date we picked to get married.
Right.
But a couple of years later, that date meant something completely different, right? The 9/11 attacks happened.
Right.
Kind of a strange day, I guess, to have for your anniversary after what happened. They had their first child, a son, named Armand a year later. They had a daughter named Lena in 2002. But again, I mentioned it, right? Friends and family said that to them, they thought Rosie and Yaz had a perfect life. They had a beautiful home, 2 great children. They were even thinking about having a third child. But 10 years after the couple met, Rosie died in what appeared to be a tragic car accident. But police found Rosie's death suspicious, and they began to peel back the layers on Yaz Essa. And what they found would be a conniving, manipulative guy, right? This was a husband who was a philanderer, who obviously had a motive for murder.
Bad guy.
He was a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I think we see that in some of the cases we do, right? From the outside, people look at these guys, and I'll say guys, women too,
sure,
as, wow, these people are great. Look at them.
Yeah.
They have great jobs. They have great families, but nobody really knows. When you start peeling back the layers, kind of pull back the curtain, what's going on with some of these people.
Yeah, you know how it is when you meet certain people. Like you said, they look great on the exterior. They say the right things.
Sure.
You can even be at an event with them and you think they're great, but then you find out later what they're really like. And you're
not so great.
Not so great.
So let's talk about that day, February 24th, 2005. Rosemary Essa was scheduled to meet her sister at the movies. So she left her house in her Volvo before 2 p.m. to begin the drive about 5 miles from her home. Rosie passed out and struck another vehicle before her car rolled to a stop against the curb. Police estimated that her speed was very low. I've seen reports, Gibbs, that showed it maybe even as low as 10 miles per hour.
Yeah.
This was not a high-speed impact.
And in a Volvo, too.
Which are historically pretty safe cars.
Right.
I've never owned a Volvo, but my understanding of that brand is that they do place a lot of emphasis on safety. So we're talking about a very low impact crash, but when first responders got to Rosie, they saw that she was barely conscious. She was slumped in her seat, She had her phone out, her cell phone, in her hand, and it would later be determined that she was trying to call her husband Yaz. So emergency personnel rushed her to the hospital, and Rosie's family, who had been notified, they rushed to be there at her side. I mean, it's a story that happens all the time across the world.
Yeah.
Car accident, somebody's hurt.
Yep.
Family rushes to the hospital. Everybody's worried.
They're there to give support, prayers,
Sure.
whatever they need to do.
Her parents and siblings gathered around Rosie. They were trying to comfort her. Yaz was in the room as well, but Rosie's family members later said that his behavior was very strange. He was kind of standing off by himself, right? He wasn't at the side of the bed. He wasn't at the side of his wife, the mother of his children, as you would expect somebody in that situation to be.
Well, absolutely you would. Get that support. And I would think because he's a doctor, he'd want to be up there making sure things are getting addressed the way they should.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it yet, but Yaz was a doctor. So, I mean, I think that even adds a little something to it. But, not even being a doctor, myself thinking about what I would do in that situation, I'm kneeling at the side of the bed. I'm maybe trying to hold my wife's hand. I'm doing whatever I can to support her. I'm sure as hell not standing off in the corner, kind of being cold.
Right.
Which is the way I think her family thought he was acting.
Yeah.
Right. He wasn't hugging them. He wasn't interacting with the family, let alone her.
Unengaged.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like he was trying to distance himself from not only his wife, but everyone in the room. But unfortunately, the hospital staff could not save her life. And Rosemary Essa was pronounced dead at 3:02 p.m., not much more than an hour after she left her house. So if you think about it, this happened very quickly, right? The crash,
right,
which I already mentioned was not a high-speed crash.
Right.
It would have taken some time to get her to the hospital. Within an hour of leaving her house, she's dead. So you have to ask that question, right? How could a seemingly healthy 38-year-old woman die from such a low-impact car crash?
I'm sure a lot of people ask that question.
Yeah, I think they did. I also think everyone was stunned that this could have happened the way it did. And I think one of the things that was on everybody's mind very early on was that, Gibbs, there's just really no way that she could have died from this car accident. There had to have been something else involved. And as the facts of this tragedy started to come out, everyone from Rosie's family to police investigators, they thought the same thing, but they also started to take a very hard look at her husband, Yazeed Essa. So let's step back for a minute, talk about Yaz. He was the son of a Palestinian immigrant. His father had realized the American dream, built up his own business through an incredible amount of hard work. I mean, that's kind of the all-American story, right? People immigrated here from other parts of the world. They worked hard. They built something, trying to get a piece of, that American dream that people call it.
Yeah, we all want a piece of that.
This was a Palestinian American family growing up in the city of Detroit. Family members have said that from a very early age, Yaz wanted to be a doctor as well as a successful businessman. His family moved to Cleveland in 1988, and that's where Yaz attended medical school. He obtained his goal of becoming a doctor, but he still had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, right? He wanted to do something in business as well. And over the years, he did own several different businesses. He started some with his brother, Firas. I think first they had a pager business.
That's an awesome man.
Which was really big, back in the day.
You probably had 3 pagers on you.
I never had more than one, but I always had one. It seemed like every company I worked for required you to have a pager. They wanted to know where you were at all times. I think for me, that was kind of the beginning of the end of things as we knew it.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Because before that, if you were out and about, nobody knew where you were, and nobody could just kind of reach out and grab you.
Yeah.
The way that they could once pagers came in, and even more so once the cell phone became ubiquitous.
Remember the little code you put on the pager so you knew if it was a rush call or call me when you could?
Yeah, you mean like 911?
Yeah.
People would put 911. Now, I did have some of those first pagers, and then they got pretty sophisticated later on, right before cell phones came out. I remember I had one where people could leave a voicemail, and somehow the service would put it into a message.
You just scroll through the message
that would show up on the pager. It was almost like a text.
Right.
But somebody couldn't type it out. They had to leave it as a voicemail type thing. Some of these younger people are like, what in the hell are you talking about?
What are you talking about, man?
First of all, stop making stuff up. No.
But we all know that one guy. I mean, there was always somebody you knew that had like, seriously, had like 3 pagers
multiple
on them.
Pagers, yeah.
Well, that's my work. That's the one for home, and that's my one for my one business. You know?
This is where I get my weed.
Okay, I gotcha.
So I think they did have a pager business early on, and then at some point they had a satellite dish company. Because again, that was very big.
You talking about the big satellite dishes?
Yeah, I think those, before DirecTV, before Dish and all that, there were companies that would come out and install those great big satellite dishes. You'd get a whole bunch of channels. And
I always hated those in real estate because when the people left, they left it behind.
Well, sure.
The other people didn't want it, and so you had to find somebody that could take it out of there, and it was never cheap. Because nobody wanted it, but it was not like some lightweight thing.
Yeah, we never had one. Yeah. I mean, where I lived, more like a neighborhood, right? You didn't see a bunch of those. Right. That was usually more reserved for people that lived out
rural,
a little bit in a more rural setting, because those things were huge. They'd take up a whole regular backyard.
Yeah, they were big.
The brothers were at one point profiled in the local newspaper for these businesses. So, Yaz was a handsome guy. He was tall. He was broad-shouldered. He had green blue eyes. It was said that all the nurses at the hospitals where he worked, they kind of fawned over him, right? Here's this good-looking doctor.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, that would be somebody that maybe people would look at as a catch. He's making a lot of money. He's a good-looking dude.
He's got a pager business.
He's got his own pager business.
So a satellite dish.
But I think even beyond that, colleagues at some of the hospitals where Yaz worked as an ER doctor, they said he was a good doctor. I mean, they trusted him completely. But it was alleged that Yaz was a pretty heavy drinker. And in fact, after the death of his wife in 2005, he had his medical license revoked for failing to provide a urine sample for screening and for failure to appear at a board appearance. So I think what you have is what sounds to me, Gibbs, like 2 different Yazes. You have the Yaz up to a certain point that seemed like he had, his you-know-what together.
It's a little concerning that he was an ER doctor. And I mean, I get it. They don't want you to be in their way when your spouse is in the hospital.
Yes. But you're going back to him standing in that room.
Yeah.
His wife is not doing well. You would think he would take a little bit of an assertive role.
Well, sure. Yeah.
And be right there by her side. If not to comfort her, which you think he would, but
right.
even if he's not going to do that, he's going to be on top of all the medical things that are happening.
Right. Are they doing everything they possibly can at this moment?
Exactly. But he didn't do either one of those.
No.
And I think there were some early signs pointing to strange behavior by Yazeed Essa. We mentioned it, right? He was standoffish in the hospital room. He kept to himself. Later, after his wife died, his family and friends gathered later that evening at his house. Rosie's brother, Dominic DiPuccio, received a phone call from Rosie's best friend, Eva, later that evening. So this is the day that Rosie died. He got a phone call later that evening. He had to break the news to Rosie's best friend that she was gone. But on the phone, Eva had a very interesting response to the news that her best friend had passed away. The first words out of her mouth after hearing the news reportedly were, "Oh my God, that son of a bitch, he killed her." So, I think as the brother, you're taking that very seriously.
Yeah. Like, what makes you say that?
Yeah, because, Eva would go on to say that she had spoken to Rosie on the phone as she was making that fateful car trip earlier in the day. And she said that Rosie had told her that she was starting to feel very sick as she was leaving the house. And Yaz, right before she left, had given her a calcium pill. Eva went on to say that Rosie relayed to her that she believed this calcium pill that her husband gave her might be what was making her sick. So, I think, Gibbs, it's not hyperbole to say that this little pill, what Yazeed Essa called a calcium pill, would become central to the case of the death of Rosie Essa. But Rosie's brother Dominic has this information.
Right.
What's he going to do with it?
Well, I know what he should do with it, but we know that's not the case.
And I'm assuming by that you're saying take it to police?
Absolutely.
So I think what he did was he talked it over with his brother first. And his brother Rocco and he, they had all these discussions. They went on for a couple of weeks trying to figure out what to do with this information. Do we sit on it? Do we give it to police?
But I get it. They're grieving too, and they got
Yes.
a funeral and all that. But that's still a long time.
It is.
To weigh that information. Do we or don't we?
It's a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It definitely is. And Dominic would later say that the reason behind it was that he loved Yaz. He thought of this guy as a brother. And, that early on during the grieving process, he just couldn't believe that Yaz would have done anything to harm Rosie.
Right.
And I get that. I think a lot of people would have that same kind of mentality. This is a person that you've known for a long time.
Right.
You've been to family functions. You've gone on vacations. You eat dinner. Somebody says something derogatory about them. And this is more than derogatory. This is, he may have killed your sister.
Right.
That's going to be hard to process, I think.
Oh, I get that for sure. But you still could have dropped it in the lap of the police and let them do the due diligence on it. They could have looked into it and,
Yeah, he definitely could have. And, there were some other revelations that came out shortly after Rosie's death. I think her family had the sense that Yaz was taking her death very casually, almost as if he was not affected by it at all. The entire DiPuccio family offered their help to Yaz to take care of the children, but he refused to let any of them help in any way. Instead, what he did was he very quickly hired two nannies.
Oh, interesting.
Margarita Montanez and Michelle Madeline. So when we talk about trying to digest this information and should we go to the police, should we not, you've got some other factors here that maybe entered in and is probably what sent Rosie's brother on the path of going ultimately to the police. Hey, TCAT fans, we've got a lot going on. It's not easy to prioritize yourself when there's a lot on your plate, but investing in your mental health has long-term benefits. And with Talkspace, it can actually be affordable. Unlike in-person therapy sessions, Talkspace gives you 24/7 access to your online therapy room. Send unlimited messages to your dedicated therapist, and they'll respond daily, 5 days a week. Best of all, an entire month of Talkspace costs about the same amount as a single in-person session. The Talkspace network is composed of thousands of licensed therapists who have experience in over 40 specialties, including but not limited to treating depression, anxiety, substance abuse, food and eating, and much more. The bottom line is that we all need someone to talk to. Talkspace wants to give us the support we deserve at a price we can afford. As a listener of this podcast, you get $100 off your first month on Talkspace. To match with your perfect therapist, go to Talkspace.com or download the app. Make sure you use the code TCAT to get $100 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's TCATT and Talkspace.com. Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. So detectives with the Highland Heights Police Department, they began investigating the death of Rosie Essa. And of course, as always the case, they had to look at first those closest to Rosie, which included Yaz. Investigators very quickly discovered some interesting facts about Mr. Essa. They found out that he had been involved in a number of sexual relationships over the course of his marriage to Rosie.
Not such a good guy after all.
No. And again, I think it goes back to when we're talking about peeling the layers away. Well, when they started peeling, they found some rotten shit in the middle, which is often the case when you're talking about some of these people. And I think a lot of times, Gibbs, people don't have to peel all that far. Some of this stuff is not hidden down deep. It's just right under the surface.
Just right below the blanket, man.
You throwing back the covers?
Throwing back the covers.
So he was cheating on Rosie, right? And investigators determined that the two nannies that Yaz hired were two of his lovers, and that he was intimate with both of them in his house within days of his wife's death. Okay. I get it. You can make the argument that maybe a grieving person needs some companionship.
Right.
Are you really going to rekindle sexual trysts with two females that you actually brought into your house within days of your wife passing away? I think a lot of guys would look at that and say, no, that's just not how you do it. Nobody would feel the need to do that. You're grieving.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you look good at all. So when it all came out, Yaz had met Margarita Montanez in 2001, and they began a sexual relationship. At the time, they were both married. Michelle Madeline later stated that she met Yaz and began an affair with him prior to Rosie's death. So you have all these revelations, right? Unpeeling the layers or pulling back the covers, whatever you want to call it. They're not proving that Yaz had anything to do with Rosie's murder. But you'd have to say they're not painting this guy in a very good light at all.
No, I mean, he was unengaged during her time at the hospital. He's not engaging the family anymore with help for the kids. He hires the two women that he has had affairs with to be the nannies, which I would think that would be kind of awkward to have two women that you've had affairs with inside your home at this potentially the same time Or maybe not.
Hugh Hefner gets away with it.
That's true.
I'm not saying this guy was Hugh Hefner, but I mean, the whole thing is just so far out there.
Yeah.
I think from where you and I come from that standpoint of what's right and what's wrong, what's ethical, what's unethical, all of this is way over the line for guys like you and me.
Right.
And I'm sure for most guys listening, there's always somebody out there that's like, nah, I'm okay with it. But
and like you said, he's supposed to be grieving right now too.
Yeah.
On top of all this.
Yeah, but he's not.
No.
And he's not even really that good at hiding it because the family sees it, friends are seeing it. Investigators also found some people connected with Yaz that said he had made many statements over the years, stating that he wanted to leave his wife so that he could be free to sleep with whomever he wanted to. Again, not making you look that great, but on the flip side of that, Gibbs, you could make the argument that he kind of was doing that already. It's almost as if he wanted to be free, but he wasn't letting being married stop him from catting around.
No, we know that.
So 3 weeks after Rosie's death, on March 17th, 2005, detectives from the Highland Heights PD, they brought Yaz in for questioning. The autopsy of Rosemary Essa showed that she had more than 4 times the lethal amount of cyanide in her system.
No calcium pill, was it?
No, it definitely wasn't a calcium pill. The problem is that autopsy information didn't come until later. So police and detectives, investigators, they didn't have that information when they sat down to interview Yaz. What they did have was the information provided by Rosie's brother about his call and that information that came from Rosie's friend Eva. But the detectives did, they started to ask Yaz about the calcium supplements that Rosie was taking. When you look at the interview between the detectives and Yaz, he appears to be very calm. This is not a guy that is rattled or does not appear to be. He's not sobbing. He doesn't seem like he's overmatched by these detectives at all. He told the detectives that Rosie had not taken her calcium pill that day and that he had reminded her to take it just before she walked out of the door to go to the movie. So as they're wrapping up this interview, one of the detectives asked Yaz if the calcium pills were still at home, and he said, yep, they are. Based on that, detectives asked if Yaz minded if they followed him to his house to collect the pills. And he said, no, not a problem. Very calmly. So police went to the Essa home to collect the calcium pills. Obviously, Gibbs with designs on sending them off to be tested.
Right.
But I think what a lot of people have wondered about this part in particular is, how could this guy be so calm, knowing that that's not going to be good for him? If they get their hands on these pills, they test them, it's not going to come back favorable to him.
Well, maybe he just didn't think they'd test him that way. I don't know. Pretty smart guy. You would think that he would clue in that they're definitely going to take those pills and test them. Or maybe he thought he could get home just enough to switch them out with something.
Or maybe he wasn't planning on being around by the time that these tests came back.
So he just didn't care.
Because when they did come back, the results of the test on the calcium pills, it was very clear that the pills had been laced with cyanide. At least 9 of the capsules still in the bottle were found to contain cyanide. So I think at that point, everything changed, right? Police believed that Yaz had deliberately introduced cyanide into Rosie's pills with the express intent of causing her death.
Well, you know that this is going to ruin the relationship with Rosie's family.
Yeah, I'm not sure how great it was at this point, but once they find this out, yeah, it's over. And I think that would be pretty shocking. Again, because we talked about how hard it would be to, kind of think that this man you've spent so much time with could be a killer or your daughter's killer, your sister's killer. But that's exactly what they're going to find out. But I kind of hinted at it already, right? Yazeed Essa really wasn't afraid of the police because he had no intentions of waiting around for them to find out what exactly was in those calcium pills. Just days after the interview, he dropped his 2 children, who were only 4 and 2 years old at the time, off at Rosemary's brother's house. He told his wife's brother that he had to leave town because his friend had been severely injured in a car accident. So I'm really worried about my friend who was in this car accident. Yet my wife was in a car accident. I didn't seem all that concerned about it.
Yeah, strange.
You know, again, we do these episodes and it kind of jumps out. It leaps out at you all of the instances where things don't make sense. Now, when people are going through it, they're not seeing it condensed in the way that we are.
Right.
So it doesn't maybe jump out as quickly. But that was a lie, right? That wasn't true. He didn't have a friend who was in a car accident. He went on the run and the FBI was called in to help track him down. And the first hit they got was that he purchased a plane ticket at a local travel agency, and then he made his way to Detroit. He partied with some of his old friends at a downtown casino, and then he crossed over into Canada. And that's very familiar to me. And I've mentioned it before. I lived in Detroit.
Right.
We used to go across the bridge all the time into Windsor, Canada.
Partied up.
Yeah. I mean, it was very easy when I lived there, but that was pre 9/11.
Sure.
This is post 9/11.
Yeah.
But the guy's not probably on any watch list, or at that point, they might be looking for him,
so he's
wanting to talk to him.
Rolling into Windsor and keep going all the way over to Toronto. And
yep. And that's exactly what he did. He made his way to Toronto, and it was in Toronto that he boarded a flight to Cyprus that included a layover at England's Heathrow Airport. Investigators, they followed his credit card activity. Not too hard, right? At that point in time. And they figured out that he was in Cyprus, and then figured out that he later moved on to Beirut. Once he got there, he used a network of contacts that he had in the area to keep him well hidden. And Gibbs, I don't think this was throw a dart at a map type of decision making. Yazeed Essa, he planned carefully.
Yeah, he was smart about this decision.
This was not a dumb guy by any stretch, right? But in choosing Lebanon as a destination, it was done deliberately because that country had no extradition treaty with the United States. So even if the U.S. authorities could track him down and find him, they would not legally be able to arrest him and bring him back.
Right. It was a safe haven for him.
So there was an educated thought process that went into his actions.
Yeah.
Yaz had a man named Jamal Khalif, who he knew from his days in Detroit. This was the guy that was kind of helping him stay hidden in Lebanon. Khalif set Yaz up with a furnished apartment in Beirut, provided him with fake IDs, a bunch of different aliases.
So he was set as long as he stayed low.
Yeah, that's all he had to do.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with Yaz. He wasn't that type of guy. He wasn't the guy to just stay in the shadows, right? He wanted to go out drinking, partying, and of course, he wanted to meet women.
Yeah. Well, we know he had a problem with booze.
He did, and we know he liked women. I mean, I think that part was pretty obvious. I mean, I think that was his whole goal, right? He had told people that. He wanted to be free of his wife. He just wanted to go out and live it up and meet people and be able to sleep with as many women as he wanted to. And I think in Lebanon, he was able to do that. His friend Khalif later said that Yaz spent the whole time that he was there in Lebanon drinking, having sex with sex workers, But he also later admitted that Yaz was being funded by his brother, Faraz. So Gibbs, when you boil it down, you have this guy, Yazeed Essa. He's on the run for murdering his wife. He's basically living life like he's on this extended vacation.
Yeah.
He also started dating a 38-year-old school teacher named Nayla. And this was a relationship that became somewhat serious. They were seeing each other every day. And at some point, Yaz did confide in this woman that police in the U.S. were accusing him of killing his wife.
Yeah, but he really wasn't too honest about that.
Well, he said he was completely innocent. The relationship's not going to keep going if you say, they're after me, and I sure did it.
Yeah.
I sure did it.
I killed my wife.
Not too many women are going to say, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm okay being your next wife.
Yes. Not going to happen. So he lived it up for over a year, but Yaz made a big mistake in October of 2006 when he boarded a plane to Cyprus. Because unlike Lebanon, Cyprus did have an extradition treaty with the United States, and officials in Cyprus had been tipped off that Essa was on board the plane using one of these aliases that had been provided to him by his friend Khalif. So when the plane landed, authorities in Cyprus were there to greet Yazeed Essa. And he didn't look anything like he had looked, a year or two prior.
Yeah.
He had very long hair.
Oh, like you did when you were 19.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I went through that phase.
Right.
But I think he did that for a reason, right? His look at the time really didn't match any of the photos that officials had of him.
Yeah, the wanted pictures.
Sure. But when he was fingerprinted, it was confirmed that they in fact had Yazeed Essa. It's kind of hard to get out of that one. And you can change your hair, you can get plastic surgery. I guess you can, at least in the movies, you can burn your finger tips off. I don't know.
Chew them off.
Oh, that's nasty.
I know.
I've seen that.
Do the face off. Remember that movie?
Are we doing Nicolas Cage, John Travolta?
Yeah. Changing the face, man. Peeling it back.
That's been a while ago. I still don't think technology has evolved to that point.
Not yet. It's going to get there, though, one day. You can be able to trade faces with people if you like.
I think you and I should trade.
Just here.
And live each other's lives for a while and see how it goes.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of weird ramifications of that. Okay, scratch that.
Yeah.
Scratch that. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like they're 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. My wife and I do a lot of shopping online, and we always use Rakuten. Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. We're talking fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Macy's, Nike, Sephora, Dyson, and Lowe's. And that's just to name a few. Pay Rakuten to send them shoppers, and Rakuten then passes passes on a part of that payment to its members as cashback. Cashback is deposited directly into your PayPal account, or Rakuten can send you a check. You can even maximize your savings by stacking cash back on top of other deals, like store sales and coupons. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It really is a no-brainer. Membership is free, and it's easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's Rakuten. Your cashback really adds up. So they've got him, right? He made a big mistake. Officials got him. But Yazeed Essa was not going to go back to the U.S. without a fight, right? He's going to fight the extradition back to face his charges. And that fight lasted another 2 years. In the meantime, prosecutors charged his siblings. So they charged his brother Firas and his sister Runa of taking money from the companies that they owned to provide Yaz with the money he needed to live his life on the run.
Yeah.
They accused Firas of embezzling over $2 million from this satellite company that he owned with his brother Yaz, and then funneling that money into accounts managed by their sister Runa. So then it was Runa who was responsible for secretly getting the money to Yaz, right? Which helped him lead this playboy lifestyle.
It's a lot of money in that dish business.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
I bet you there was a lot of money in the pager business back in the day.
Probably true.
And then all of a sudden, it was gone.
Because
kind of like DVD.
Not only are you selling the pagers, you're selling those batteries too.
Batteries. Well, and there was a plan. If you remember, wasn't there a plan that you had to pay for monthly? It was kind of like a cell phone plan.
It was like $9 or something.
Sure. Yeah. It wasn't like outrageous.
Yeah. But you had to have the plan. I just remember people would text things. There's certain numbers you could text that would say, instead of numbers, it would say words. They'd mess with you.
You mean like on a calculator where it spell out like boob or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People would do that all the time.
What kind of friends did you have that were juvenile enough to spell out boob on your pager?
Yeah. I think they're like, attorneys now or
you
something.
You need to get
like
some new.
Yeah.
You should have gotten some new friends. They probably are. They're like big professionals now.
Yeah. One of them runs a Mensa. That's how I got in.
Oh, is that how you got in?
Yeah. I was like,
I knew it was going to
let me in, or I'm going to show everybody this text on my pager it used to send me.
I knew it was going to come out eventually. But this was a big deal. I mean, and this was a tactic, right? The judge told Yaz's siblings that they would likely get probation if their brother came back to face prosecution. But if he didn't, they were going to throw the book at him, right? Firas could face up to 11 years in prison, while Runa could potentially face up to 9 months. Well, 11 years is no joke.
No, it's big time, man.
So you're either going to hang your brother and sister out to dry, or you're going to come home and face the music. But he didn't make that decision until 2009. Well, he might have made it a little earlier, but it was January 2009 when Yazeed Essa got off a plane in Cleveland, Ohio, and was met by FBI agents. He was transported to the Cuyahoga County Jail to face charges of murdering his wife. His defense attorney, a guy named Stephen Bradley, made a very interesting statement regarding the reason why Yazeed Essa decided to give up his extradition fight. Bradley said, "I think that you see that with the election of Barack Obama, an African-American man whose last name is Obama being elected president of the United States, in Yaz's eyes, that signals potential change in the atmosphere of our country." Gibbs, if you remember back to that time frame, there was an atmosphere of change.
You're right.
In a lot of people's minds.
Sure.
But I don't think what had changed was that, but I don't think there was any change in most people's minds about, a cheating husband who had murdered his wife.
No.
I just don't understand how the two went together.
It's a whole different type of change.
Yeah, there was a lot of people back in the day that were excited for Obama to see what he was going to do. I remember that. I just don't know how Yaz was putting that together with, well, you know what? We've got this president now. Maybe I'll be okay.
Yeah, maybe he'll let me off. Maybe he'll pardon me one day.
I just didn't get it. So he was charged. He pleaded not guilty to the aggravated murder of his wife, Rosemary Essa, but they set his bond at $75 million.
Yeah, well, that's good.
That's pretty high.
Yeah.
But in justifying it, the judge said it's high because this guy's a big time flight risk.
So if he wanted it to be bonded out, it'd be like $7.5 million, which, you know, I don't know anybody's going to give up $7.5 million to bond you out, knowing that you're probably going to skip.
Knowing that you've already run once and you have this whole network of people that may or may not be willing to hide you.
Right.
In early January 2010, the trial of Yazeed Essa for the murder of his wife began. So, as you have in a lot of trials, right? You have both sides painting a very different picture of the whole situation and of Yaz. In opening statements, the prosecutor, Steve Deaver, he made the statement saying, what we're going to do is present to you a picture of a narcissistic sociopath who calculated an evil plan to kill his wife. And I think Gibbs, what they set about to do was hammer home the point that, you know, this was a guy who had consistently cheated on his wife, and that in the end, he had killed her to be with another woman. And for them, that woman was Michelle Madeline. You know, we talked about two different women that he brought into his house as nannies. Prosecutors presented evidence that Yaz had sent Madeline a pajamagram that said, next Valentine's Day will be all ours. Okay, well, what are you reading from that?
Right.
That my wife's going to be out of the way. You and I will be together with nobody to interfere. Prosecutors also played a video of Michelle Madeline stating that Yaz had told her that she would be the only mommy that his children would remember. So, I mean, we're not talking smoking gun type stuff here, but it's damaging.
It is.
Depending on how the jury takes it. And the prosecution contended that Yazeed Essa, he didn't want to divorce Rosie. He just wanted to replace her. And he wanted to do this without giving up any of his money so that he can continue to live the lifestyle that he had grown accustomed to. And the only way for him to make this happen in his mind was to murder his wife. And I think you see that play out in a lot of husbands who murder their wives for a very similar reason.
I say, yeah, it's kind of like a repeat of another bad plan.
Yeah. It's a reason. It's the thought process behind a lot of murders. It really is. And you and I have probably talked about it before. You know, a guy wants to get out of a relationship. Well, you can get out of just about any relationship. There are ways to do it. The problem is money in some people's eyes. They don't want to give up any money. They want to get out, but they don't want to give up their fair share of the money to their spouse or whatever. Well, they want their cake and they want to eat it too.
And it's just not going to happen, man. Just do the right thing.
It's not going to happen legally.
Well,
for darn sure.
I mean, if you want out, get out.
Yeah.
Split the funds and move on, man.
I'm sure there are many people that have gotten away with it, both men and women.
Sure.
But there are also a lot of people that have been caught. But I don't think there's any argument that it's a big motive for murder, right? Money. It's right up there.
Oh, it's
greed, money, whatever you want to call it. It's one of those big motivating factors in a lot of murders. Issa's defense attorney countered in his opening statements with, let me begin by saying that the death of Rosemary Essa was senseless and certainly tragic, but there is no motive, whatsoever for him to have committed this crime. So what the defense tried to do in countering the prosecution's claims was to say that why would Essa have murdered his wife to be with Michelle Madeline? She wasn't the love of his life. She was just one of many.
Right.
I mean, they had to concede the point that, yes, Yaz had been unfaithful to his wife. He had had a bunch of affairs during the marriage, but Rosemary didn't know about any of them. I think that was an important point that they were trying to make. It wasn't like he had been caught and she was about ready to leave him and take his money. What they tried to say was that it was actually Margarita Montanez who had murdered Rosie because she was jealous and she wanted Yaz all to herself. The defense team said there was no motive for Yaz to want his wife dead. He was a successful doctor who owned a thriving satellite business. They told the jury that the couple was planning on trying to have a third child, and they had no financial pressures whatsoever. So you say this a lot, Gibbs. What are they trying to do?
Well, they're trying to plant reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. That's their job.
Yep, exactly. And I think they really tried to hang their hat on the fact that there really was no evidence to prove that Yaz knew when he handed that calcium pill to his wife that it was laced with cyanide.
Well, they could argue that because they can say, well, when the detectives asked if they could come by the house and get those pills, he acted very calm.
Sure.
Like, sure, you can get them. I have no reason why I wouldn't want you to take them.
Yep.
You know, so that can play a little bit.
Now, as a juror, I think I would be thinking, okay, so how would the cyanide have gotten in there? And who else would have done it? Who else would have had a reason to do it? Now, the defense would say it was Margarita Montanez.
Right.
She wanted Rosie out of the picture because she wanted Yaz to herself.
I guess, you know, who had access to cyanide, who had access to the calcium pills.
I think the problem with that is those neither one of those women were living in the house at that time. Doesn't mean they couldn't have somehow gained access. It doesn't mean that he didn't invite them over for a tryst when his wife was away. And I'm sure the defense team probably could have proven that. Now, jurors learned about some strange and odd behavior that Yaz exhibited hours after his wife's death. I mean, I think we've already talked about some of it. But when family members gathered at the Essa home after Rosie died, apparently Yaz was playing pool with friends, he was drinking, and he was making some inappropriate jokes.
Very inappropriate jokes.
The prosecution called one guy to the stand who had once worked for Yaz, and this guy testified that Yaz laughed when he made the statement, "At least I won't have to sneak women into the house anymore." Whew, I think as a juror, that's not looking too good.
No.
This guy went on to say that no one in the room laughed, and the statement bothered him as being incredibly inappropriate. Prosecutors also called Michelle Madeline to the stand, one of the two nannies that Yaz had been sleeping with before and after the death of his wife. On the stand, she said to the jury that Yaz said he was not in love with his wife anymore. He said she was a good person, but she was cold. And Madeline told them that Yaz had a nickname for his wife. He called her Amana, after the refrigerator brand.
Amana. Wow.
That's rough.
It is rough.
Your wife is so cold in your mind that you're going to start referring to her as Amana.
Yeah.
Or Frigidaire.
Or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really gets to the root of this guy's mindset. You know, he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, he really was.
Yeah.
But aside from, you know, being a murderer, which we're going to get to here shortly, I think deep down the guy was just an ass.
Yeah. Clearly he had that personality.
But prosecutors had more damning evidence besides, Yaz's lovers and some of these people that said he made inappropriate statements. They called Yaz's brother Faraz to the stand to question him about whether he had any communication with his brother about bribing someone not to talk. Faraz said, nope, never had that conversation. And then the prosecution hit him with a taped prison phone conversation.
Yeah, I love this.
And, you and I have talked about it before. They tape all those damn calls.
Well, sure they do.
But still, people get on there and say all kinds of incriminating things. So this call was between Yaz and his brother. And Yaz asked Faraz, what happened to the woman that you paid $25,000 to shut up? On the call, Faraz said that they finally settled on $35,000.
So that's not good because you just told the police he did not.
Right. I mean, right then and there, everyone knows you've perjured yourself. And again, how do you not know that these phone calls are not recorded?
I even think they have a sign by the phone.
Did you just outline it with your finger?
I did.
In a rectangle?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, how big it was next to that phone.
Yeah.
On the wall there.
Yeah, well, you were in there for a long time.
Yeah,
you should remember.
Yeah, I know. Should just come back like second nature.
But I think, Gibbs, this was kind of one of those Perry Mason moments that we talk about, right? They got this guy dead to rights.
Right.
And they actually let him off the stand to consult with an attorney because he had clearly perjured himself. And it was a huge turning point in the trial because after consulting with his attorney, Frost knows he has to come clean, right? He's facing some serious jail time for what he just said on the stand. And so he comes clean when asked by the prosecutor whether his brother told him if he put cyanide in the calcium pills. Frost admits that, yes, Yaz told him that he did. So I think right then and there, like I said, turning point in the trial, huge blow to the defense. That probably caught them a little bit off guard. How are they going to counter that? But the prosecution had another big witness in the form of Jamal Khalif. This is the guy that helped Yaz kind of lay low in Lebanon in 2005 and 2006. Khalif had arranged to meet with prosecutors and detectives in Athens, Greece, back in 2008. And at that point, he made a deal.
Yeah. Well, he needed to.
He said, you know what? I will tell you everything in exchange for immunity. So on the stand, prosecutors asked him to tell the jury what Yaz told him during the time they spent together in Lebanon. And Khalif said that Essa told him that he refilled his wife's calcium pills with ground up cyanide. He gave her 2 pills before she left the house and that she had a car accident and died. Khalif also testified that Essa was obsessed with Googling his name to see his status as one of America's most wanted.
He had an ego, man, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
He had a serious ego. So I mentioned it, the defense was kind of up against it at this point. They tried to counter the testimony of Khalif by saying that, you know what, this guy would say anything to keep from doing time.
Right.
And I think you can make that argument about witnesses that are granted immunity. I think that argument is made a lot.
Sure, especially when they have a past like he did.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think sometimes that argument is valid. We've seen it in some of the wrongful conviction cases that, people get immunity, they say things, it turns out not to be true, but yet it was huge in prosecuting, whoever it was that was on trial. The defense said that Khalif had fled Michigan for Lebanon in 1994 because he was under investigation for money laundering. So essentially, they're just trying to tear down his character. But they were able to get Khalif to admit that he and Yaz had worked together on an insurance scheme that involved Khalif's cousin, who was diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer. So part of the defense's argument was that Khalif was lying about Yaz as some form of revenge after Essa threatened to out Khalif as being part of this insurance fraud, this scheme. During closing arguments, the assistant Cuyahoga County prosecutor said, "That man right there took an oath to preserve human life. And what does he do on February 25th, 2005? He destroys it." Pretty true.
Good point, man.
I don't know how you say that's not true.
That's a good point.
I mean, what's the oath? Do no harm. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's like one of the big ones.
Yeah.
The trial of Yazeed Essa lasted 6 weeks. More than 60 witnesses were called. Over 200 pieces of evidence were introduced. The jury deliberated for 18 hours over 3 days after they got the case. And on March 5th, 2010, the verdict was read just after 1 p.m., finding Yazeed Essa guilty of the aggravated murder of his wife, Rosemary. Many of the people in the packed courtroom, Gibbs, they burst into tears. And I can imagine that. My assumption is that a large number of the people in that courtroom were friends and family of Rosemary.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be very emotional for sure.
After the trial, one female juror said that Yaz showed no emotion during the trial at all, not even when a picture of his wife and children were shown in court.
You know what? I think all he cared about was having a good time, man.
I think all he cared about was
him.
Yaz.
Yeah.
I honestly do.
And feeding
what
his ego.
he wanted.
Yeah, feeding that ego. Booze, women.
And he looked at his wife and kids as kind of being in the way.
Yeah, they were a roadblock for sure.
A roadblock.
Yeah.
I think that's a good word.
Yeah.
But this juror went on to say, when your kids aren't there, you're going to miss them. You're going to cry. So she's not even talking about his wife, really. This juror's focused in on them showing a picture of his kids who he hadn't seen for a long time, and not an ounce of emotion for any of them.
I don't think he cared, man.
I think it had been 5 years from the time that he left the United States until the trial happened.
You cry just 4 days, 5 days when your daughter leaves.
Oh, I do.
And then when she comes back, you're like just a
blubbering
you really are
mess.
Yeah.
So this guy didn't see his kids for 5 years and had no expression, no tears, nothing. And again, when you look at what jurors pick up on and what they look at, aside from the evidence, you can't tell me that things like this don't play into trials. You know, this is a juror that's coming out and saying after the fact, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That this guy was emotionless. 4 days after the verdict, Rosemary's family and friends were in court to give their impact statements to the judge before he handed his sentence down. Her parents and other family members told Essa what he had taken away from them, and they urged him to admit what he had done. And again, this guy sat there, didn't say a word, showed not 1 ounce of emotion through the whole thing. Even when one of Rosemary's brothers read a statement from her children, his children, right, too, that read, Rosie was my mommy, and I miss her terribly each and every day. I mean, so I'm tearing up a little bit, Gibbs, just kind of imagining that scene playing out in the courtroom.
Yeah.
These aren't even my kids, and I'm getting a little bit emotional. This guy has no emotion.
No.
I mean, he's heartless. He
don't care, man.
I think it really kind of demonstrates the fact that he's probably a spot on narcissistic sociopath.
Yeah, I believe that.
No remorse for what he's done. No remorse for the pain that he's caused all of the people around him, including members of his own family, his kids.
He's still waiting for Obama to get him out of there.
Yeah. Again, I don't know why he thought a change in the presidency was going to affect how his trial was going to go down in any way. I'm still shocked about that part.
Wait a minute. What about the new president? No, nobody. It doesn't work that way.
The judge handed down a sentence of life in prison for Yaz with the possibility of parole in 20 years.
It's too bad.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's also, I think, lighter than what a lot of people would think the guy would get.
You would think with the murder plus the evading and on the run internationally would be more than 20 years.
Yeah, so he's scheduled to have his first parole hearing in November of 2028. Doesn't mean he's going to get out, but it means he potentially could.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a real shame. I think that would be an injustice to the memory of his wife, his kids, his wife's family.
Hopefully, her family, the kids will be at that parole hearing, or at least be able to give statements.
Well, yeah, they'll be old enough to speak eloquently about what this has done to them. Exactly. I think what this guy really has going against him is kind of the same thing that a lot of narcissistic sociopaths do.
Yeah.
Parole boards don't let you out when you've not shown any remorse.
Yeah.
They don't like to do that.
No.
And I don't think this guy's really capable. Now, he might be able to fake it.
Yeah, he might.
But he sure as hell didn't try at any point during the trial. So now maybe he'll have 20 years to think about it and say, you know what? Maybe I should conjure up a tear.
Yeah, maybe I should change the way I'm handling this.
But I know you and I feel the same way, and I'm assuming everybody listening probably feels the same way as well. And that's hoping that the parole board sees through this guy if he does happen to change his ways and kind of put on an act. But that's it, Gibbs. That's the case of Yazeed Essa. I mean, it's one of those to me that, again, is so heartbreaking and so scary because you're talking about the killing of a spouse, the person that you're supposed to love. At some point you did.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't have gotten married. I get it. Things go downhill in marriages. It happens all the time. People get divorced.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a guy like Yaz and the ego that he had, most likely the narcissistic sociopath that he is, I just don't think he could live with not getting his way. And his way was, I can get it all if I do this. And I'm so smart that I'll get away with it. Right? Nobody's smarter than me. Cops aren't going to be able to figure this out.
Yeah, he wanted that playboy life. He wanted to definitely do what he want when he wanted without having to answer to anybody.
But here's the thing, and I'm not saying this is right either, but if the marriage was at a place where it should end, and there are times when that has to happen.
Sure there is.
Are you telling me that he still could not have led the life he wanted to? Yes, I get it. Maybe he's going to have to pay alimony. He's going to have to pay child support.
Sure.
He's still going to have a bunch of money. He's a doctor. That's the part I just don't get.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good career. He had the businesses that were going well. Clearly, if they could funnel $2 million out,
they were making money.
He could have made arrangements and paid her out, So why kill somebody when you could have just ended it, still be around, doing your thing, and she could be with her kids.
And you could be with your kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I don't think he wanted to. I don't think he cared about them.
No.
Personally. But anyway, that's just, for me, it's hard to wrap my head around that. I get it. Somebody is threatening you. They come after you and you're defending yourself and you kill somebody.
Yeah.
I get that's going to happen every now and then.
Sure.
I don't get these, man, I don't want to pay alimony. I don't want to pay child support. You know what? It'd just be easier for me to kill this person.
Yeah.
You know, it just does not compute.
I mean, think about what he did, right? I mean, he not only did he take away the mother of the kids, he's away. I mean, the kids lose big time.
Right.
It's not fair to the kids.
They grow up with her family, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, and so, I mean, at least, you know, sounds like she had really good family, and I'm sure they're great kids, you know, adults now. But the fact that he put them in that position, you know,
is selfish.
It is.
The whole thing is just completely selfish. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, this is Deborah from Central Kentucky. I've been listening to you guys, binge listening while I work alone at the Kentucky Division of Probation and Parole Office. I have several Central Kentucky small town crimes that I'd love to run by you guys to see if you're interested. One is the case of Randy Faust, that's F-A-U-S-T, and his arson, kidnapping, murder crime spree in the little community of Garrett County, Kentucky. And the other one is one that's more recent. It's the David Sparks kidnapping or murder case with Savannah Spurlock that's going on here in our little town of Lancaster right now. So I hope that these are some that you guys can look into, and you can contact me if you want any information about either of the cases. Thank you.
Well, we love that. You know, my affinity for Central Kentucky. Go Cats.
Is that where they're located?
No, not quite, but I'm always looking for, you know, interesting cases, small town cases, lesser known cases.
Yeah.
So
sounds
we'll look into those.
Absolutely, we will.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. My name is Bo Marshall. I'm from Sandpoint, Idaho. I just finished the 85th episode about Robert Hansen. Good episode. I'm a maintenance guy at a ski resort, and I listened to 85 episodes in about 2.5 weeks, maybe a little bit more, give or take. You had mentioned one of your supporters as Van Zant 94. I'm kind of an MMA guy, and Paige Van Zant happened to be born in 94. I'm just kind of curious if that might be her. That'd be awesome. She's a beast. Yeah, just love your show. I've listened to others, and I think I like you guys the most. But anyways, I'm team both Mike and Gibby. You know, Fergie, Gibby, you guys are awesome together. I love your banters and how you guys just sometimes will underline throw things out there, but you don't necessarily laugh about it. But I get it and laugh, and I don't know, just makes my day go by. But anyways, keep your own time, Timken. Love you guys. Bye.
Well, it is her, and we had a private match, and I kicked her ass.
That's how I know you're lying. First of all, we don't know if it is her. And second of all, she would destroy you.
Hey.
Have you watched some of these women's MMA matches? I wouldn't fight none of them.
No.
I wouldn't fight the ring girls. Man, they're in good shape too. No, but in all seriousness, these girls can fight.
Oh, no doubt.
Whether you like it or not, some people don't like the fact that, you know, women are in MMA.
Oh, really?
Or should be, you know, punching each other.
Anybody wants to be in there should be in there.
But man, they are serious badasses, and they put in the work. They train.
They do, man.
It's unbelievable. So I don't know if it's her or not.
I still took her.
It'd be cool if it was. I guarantee you couldn't.
I put her in the death grip.
You can barely breathe, first of all, right now.
Yeah. But I got her in the death grip, the Spock death grip thing.
Even at 100%, she would clean your clock.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Well, hey, nobody else needs to know about this. Keep it on the down low.
You mean except for all the...
Yeah, don't let it get out to her.
Tons and tons of people that are listening?
Yeah.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. My name's Natalia, and I'm a huge fan. I started this podcast back in August, and I'm officially caught up. I'm from Tracy, California, which may sound familiar because that's where the murder of Sandra Cantu by Melissa Huckabee happened. And I'm the same age as Sandra, and when she was murdered, I was also 9, which made my parents buy me my first phone out of fear. That murder rattled the entire town, and it still does. But on a lighter note, I just wanted to call because I want to tell you guys that I love your podcast, and I will continue to listen on. So keep your own time ticking. Bye, guys.
So, Gibbs, we did that case, Melissa Huckabee, the murder of Sandra Cantu, very early on.
We did. It was rough on me, man.
And neither one of us has forgotten that case.
No.
I don't know if it is the most, but it's definitely up there in the cases that will never leave us category.
Absolutely.
You know, some cases you forget the details, you forget how gruesome things were. I can remember that, and it's almost like I can't wipe it from memory.
No, I remember the trailer park, the church, everything. Yep.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
It definitely was. We had mailbag.
Yeah.
Someone, but unfortunately I don't know who, sent you a shirt that says, I paused my true crime podcast to be here.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
It was addressed to Gibby. Actually, everything I think was addressed to you. Lottie sent pretty much a huge goodie bag of Halloween candy and other stuff. Norel Peterson, new Patreon supporter, sent in a bunch of goodies from Australia, including some very cool police patches.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
So we appreciate all of that. All right, buddy, we got to get out of here.
We do.
That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
In the early hours of December 4th, 2024, CEO Brian Thompson stepped out onto the streets of Midtown Manhattan.
This assailant pulls out a weapon and starts firing at him.
We're talking about the CEO of the biggest private health insurance corporation in the world.
And the suspect,
he has been identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione,
became one of the most divisive figures in modern criminal history.
I was targeted, premeditated, and meant to sow terror.
I'm Jesse Weber, host of Luigi, produced by Law and Crime and Twist. This is more than a true crime investigation. We explore a uniquely American moment that could change the country forever.
He's awoken the people to a true issue.
Finally, maybe this would lead rich and powerful people to acknowledge the barbaric nature of our healthcare system.
Listen to Law and Crime's Luigi exclusively on Wondery Plus. You can join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.